ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hi, I'm Julia Baird.
And I'm Jeremy Fernandez, and we have a pod called Not Stupid, where every week we chat about the stories we're a bit obsessed with.
And we've heard a lot about misinformation and disinformation in the past few months. And this week on the pod, we're looking at Australia's new planned misinformation laws. The government is hoping it will stamp out the issue, but some are worried it will restrict freedom of speech. We'll take a look at what it all means on Not Stupid. You can find it on the ABC Listen app.
Donald Trump has promised to end foreign wars, but how and on whose terms is unclear. But when it comes to the Middle East, we can learn a lot from Trump's approach to Israel during his first term as president. Today, Hussein Ibish from the Arab Gulf States Institute on what the president-elect's return really means for peace. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Hussein, when it became clear that Donald Trump would win the presidency, the first world leader out of the blocks to congratulate him was the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who called it history's greatest comeback.
Well, it's not true, because even in the United States and even in recent history, I think by any stretch of the imagination, Richard Nixon's comeback was much more impressive. It reflects Netanyahu's enthusiasm for Trump. And, that's important because Netanyahu has to make up for the fact in Trump world that he congratulated Joe Biden after Trump's defeat in 2020. Trump regarded this as an unbearable betrayal because it acknowledged the legitimacy of the election and the fact that Biden was legitimately the president at a time when Trump was still actively insisting that, no, that was not the case. And he expected loyalty from Netanyahu because he had given Israel a lot when he was the president. He had moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He issued a statement recognizing Israeli sovereignty in Jerusalem.
Today we follow through on this recognition and open our embassy in the historic and sacred land of Jerusalem.
He recognized Israel's annexation of the Golan Heights.
The leaders were formalising Donald Trump's recognition of Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, the land seized from Syria in 1967.
So this was a long time in the making. It should have taken place many decades ago.
And he issued a plan for peace that invited Israel to annex 30% more of the occupied West Bank and make a Palestinian state practically impossible. So the Israelis had a lot to be grateful to Trump for, and he expected loyalty in return in his kind of mob boss style. He didn't get it, and he was very angry for a long time, but I think they've put personal differences aside for now.
If the reports are right, Hussein, Trump and Netanyahu have actually spoken 3 times since Trump's victory. Is that telling? Is that significant at all?
It's very significant because they're going to have to figure out what the nature of their relationship is. There's an assumption in Israeli right-wing circles that Trump is going to be all in on Greater Israel now. So they're celebrating and expecting that annexation in the West Bank will come under Trump. Now, that's possible. And many Israelis are expecting that with Trump back, annexation is a done deal.
Just explain a Greater Israel for me, because that is Israel pushing into places like the West Bank, taking land there, and potentially in Gaza.
So Israel, rather than allowing the Palestinians to have a state and the two people live alongside each other in peace and security, Israel would swallow up the occupied territories. There are Israelis, many of them, including lots of people in the current government, who want to annex all or most of the West Bank and much or all of Gaza as well. And these people are in the cabinet, and they're heavily represented. And Israeli policies have been pushing in this direction ever since the summit that was held at Camp David in the summer of 2000 with Ehud Barak, Yasser Arafat, and Bill Clinton failed to create a Palestinian state.
President Bill Clinton returned to the White House today to announce the bad news.
At the end of this summit, I am fully aware of the deep disappointment that will be felt on both sides.
The train towards annexation began very slowly, but it's been picking up steam, and it looks like becoming a bullet train at the moment. And the last stop of this train is annexation/expulsion, because Israel will not accept the Palestinians as citizens. One of the most important people in Trump world is his former ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, who has remained very close to Trumpian political circles and will surely have a big role in Trump's policy towards Israel. He's just published a book called One Jewish State, in which he proposes that Israel should annex all of the occupied territories and make the Palestinians there, about 5.5 million of them, residents rather than citizens. No vote, no passport, nothing, and stay in their own country at the sufferance of Jewish Israelis and people like him.
But David Friedman will not be the ambassador this time to Israel because Donald Trump has said Mike Huckabee will be put into that position. So who is he, and what position is he likely to take?
Yes, that's no improvement on David Friedman, I'm afraid. Mike Huckabee is not a Jewish American. In fact, he'll be the first non-Jewish American in 16 years to be ambassador to Israel, a remarkable fact. He's a radical Christian fundamentalist. He is on record as saying there's no occupation. The settlements of Israel are not settlements, they're just Jewish communities. The occupied Palestinian territories are just Judea and Samaria, and Judea and Samaria are part of Israel anyway, and already part of Israel. So he's all in on Greater Israel. As far as he's concerned, Greater Israel already exists. And he's just the guy to marshal the formalization of this, if that's the way Trump wants to go.
Another person, of course, who played a big role during Trump's first presidency when it came to Israel and the Middle East was his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who, of course, is married to his daughter, Ivanka. He's had some really controversial things to say about Gaza during an interview at Harvard University. Tell me about those.
Yes, he's not as extreme as David Friedman, but he's clearly, and his whole family has been pro-settler his whole life. He's also very close to Netanyahu. Kushner has spoken about building Dubai-style beachfront properties and luxurious hotels in the Gaza beachfront, which indeed is beautiful. He doesn't say anything about what is to be done with Palestinians there, except removing them. Perhaps to the Sinai, to make way for these luxury hotel properties. It's just bizarre.
In Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable to, if people would focus on kind of building up livelihoods. You think about all the money that's gone into this tunnel network and into all the munitions. If that would have gone into education or innovation, what could have been done? And so I think that
you end up with David Friedman advising Israel to create an apartheid state formally, and Jared Kushner babbling, if I may say, about luxurious beachfront properties in this area of the world that is now a hellscape of death and poverty and starvation and destruction and devastation and displacement. It's an incredible set of statements. It's as far removed from reality as you could possibly be.
But we don't know, do we, whether either of those men will play a role this time?
It's impossible to imagine that Jared Kushner won't be involved, if nothing else, at least on the telephone. So you're right. We don't know what, if any, official role they'll have. But Kushner, at least, it's just unimaginable that he won't play a central role.
Hussein, let's turn now to what we might see then in this next term of Trump. During his victory speech, he said he would end the wars.
You know, we had no wars. 4 years, we had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
So what does that mean for Gaza, understanding that we can't read Trump's mind at this point?
Nothing good. He said he would end the wars, but he hasn't said how. He's also said that Netanyahu can do whatever he needs to with regard to Gaza, with regard to Lebanon, and with regard to Iran.
And I will support Israel's right to win its war on terror, and it has to win it fast.
And so far, he doesn't seem to be putting any limits on it, so I don't know what he has in mind. I mean, obviously, he doesn't want to inherit this conflict, and he did try to pose as a man of peace.
It's peace in the Middle East. We need it, and it's very important, and it'll happen.
And he bamboozled a lot of gormless Arab and Muslim American voters to support him. So the point is that, this man of peace has no idea what he's talking about. He said he'd end the Ukraine-Russia war with a phone call in one day after he was elected. Well, it's now weeks after he's been elected, and there's no sign of anything like that. I don't see any reason to believe that Trump is going to try, or if he does, will be able to succeed in persuading Benjamin Netanyahu to end the war in Gaza. I just don't know what he will say that will do that. And I don't see him suddenly turning around with Mike Huckabee as his ambassador and start pressurizing Israel more than Joe Biden has. And he's done precious little, but at least he has withheld munitions. He's threatened different things. He's tried to get more humanitarian aid in and all that. I think Donald Trump would probably do less of that. If he can even preside over the end of these wars, that'll be a surprising accomplishment. The one exception is Lebanon, where I think that war is primed to end anyway. And it may happen with or without Donald Trump, because I think both Iran and Hezbollah have had enough. And I think Israel also is overextended. And while the Gaza war is likely to go on, I think the Lebanon war may end in the foreseeable future. I'm sure Trump will take credit for it, but I doubt he'll have much of a role in influencing it either way.
All right. Well, Hussein, with more than 43,000 people dead in Gaza, including so many civilians and so many children, it's just an incomprehensible figure.
It is.
But if Trump says he wants the Israelis to finish up the campaign, they are his words, how is that actually achieved and quickly? Does it just mean more bloodshed? What does he mean by it?
Well, I don't think so, because there isn't much more bloodshed to be done except what's being done on a daily basis. You see, what's happened in Gaza is the first year of that war was Israel's war, in the sense that Israel launched this savage war of vengeance. And they entered the north and they steadily went south, destroying everything above ground, killing tens of thousands of people, mostly women and children, and ending up at Rafah at the Egyptian border, at which point there was nothing left to be destroyed. At that point, they could have declared victory and left, but they didn't. They persisted. They're hanging around indefinitely. And now what's happening is Hamas is getting its war, which is an open-ended insurgency, and they're playing a long game. They have fallen into a trap. I wrote about this trap in the Atlantic magazine on October 12th of 2023, 5 days after the October 7 attack. I said, Israel is falling into a trap. The trap is sprung. They're in it. That's it.
So, Hussein, what happens under Trump over the next 4 years? Is there any chance of peace, any chance of a two-state solution, a Palestinian state existing peacefully alongside Israel? What do we get?
I don't think so, no. A two-state solution under Trump, no. So there are three deals that he could try to get in the Middle East. The first one, Israeli-Palestinian peace, I think is totally impossible. The second one, which is less hard but very, very hard, would be a second nuclear agreement with Iran. If they want to do a nuclear deal, they might get one. But if they squeeze the Iranians hard enough, the Iranians might just sprint to a bomb anyway or do something else that makes it impossible. The most plausible deal that could be gotten is some version of the triangular deal with Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the United States that Biden was working on. That deal is ready, but it needs to be ratified in the Senate. That's a deal that could be struck, possibly. That's the one that's most achievable, in my opinion. But my expectation is no deals, just like the first 4 years. I think he's not capable of it.
Hussein Ibish is a senior resident scholar at the Arab Gulf States Institute in Washington, D.C. This episode was produced by Cara Jensen McKinnon and Sydney Peed. Audio production by Anna John. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. ABC News Daily will be back again on Monday. Thanks for listening.
Auckland Harbour, 1985. 2 explosions destroyed a Greenpeace ship, the Rainbow Warrior. Her last voyage would be the evacuation of the people of the tiny atoll of Rongelap in the Marshall Islands. Across 6 episodes, discover the story of a people dispossessed, the legacy of nuclear testing in the Pacific, and one man's fight for justice. The Last Voyage of the Rainbow Warrior. Find it in the ABC Listen app.